I'm good. That'll be fine. I'll take it up a notch. I will. I promise.
I'm good. I promise. I'm good.
Val Doonican
I'm good.
impersonation.
He's trying to get.
So he's wearing a bit of a Val Doonican.
I think he's trying to get your attention.
Hi everyone, we're live, I understand, on Facebook. This is Steve Barrett of PR Week, and we are about to record our final podcast of the year. It's been a crazy year, and we're going to review that over the next 25 minutes with a stellar crew of PR Week senior folks. Frank Washcook, our regular correspondent. How you doing, Frank?
I'm doing well.
Good. Gideon Fiddlesite, the legend, rejoins us after a long gap. How you doing, Gideon?
I've missed it. I'm very good.
Yeah, we've missed you, man.
You know that whenever I go to meet somebody for lunch or drinks or whatever, they ask about Gideon. They say, "How is Gideon doing?"
And do you know that you never ever tell me that?
Well, now he's told the whole world. And we got Maya Samuel, a new joiner, a new member of our team, joined us to lead our custom content lab. How you doing, Maya?
I'm great. Hello, everybody.
Good to have you on board.
Thank you.
So, yeah, we will start recording our formal podcast very shortly. Have you got any comments? Want to wish us happy holidays? Want to tell us how brilliantly we've done this year? Mild criticism, but be nice, no haters. And we will kick off the show. Right. How about a hi to Perry Simpson behind the dials, actually? The man with the plan, the man who gets this all done, makes sure the trains run on time. How you doing, Perry?
All right.
Yeah?
Hungry. Good.
You're always hungry, let's be honest. And we're all getting ready for our holiday party this evening. Perry, are you going to go home on time this year, or are you going to fall asleep in the restrooms like last year?
I'm going to probably get out early this year. I got Star Wars to go see.
Have you?
That's out tonight.
Tonight?
Yeah.
You'd rather do that than spend time with your
I've
colleagues.
been waiting for this movie for actually 40 years, longer than I've been alive.
Are you and Sean Zanecki going to both bail early?
He's going Tuesday.
Oh, is it?
He's probably going to stay the whole night.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so
No guarantee.
enough waffle. Let's give me the signal and then we'll start recording. Hello and welcome to the PR Week, PR Week's regular weekly roundup of everything that matters in the worlds of PR and communications. My name's Steve Barrett. I'm the editor-in-chief of PR Week, going to guide you gently through the next 25, maybe 30 minutes as we review the year. This is our last podcast of the year, listeners. So we're going to have a look back. Crazy year on so many levels, but it's spun by, and we'll have a little look forward to, in the company of a senior team of fantastic people, starting of course with the man himself, Frank Washcook, our news editor. Genial Frank. How are you today, Frank?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Thank you for having me on the special edition.
It's a pleasure. It's been a crazy year, hasn't it?
Yeah, when you introduced me like that, I thought you were going to introduce the next guy.
Ah, well, now we're talking a national treasure.
Yes.
We're talking the man, the legend. He's back due to popular demand after a big absence. It's Gideon Fiddlesite, our managing editor and a member of the Custom Content Lab. How are you, Gideon?
I'm doing well, but I'm just a national treasure. I thought it'd be global.
Global, well, you are a global treasure now. This is going out on Facebook Live. So, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Where have you been?
I've been working really, really hard, traveling
yeah.
the world. Just came back from Washington yesterday. Had an event
DC.
DC.
Yeah.
I had an event at the National Press Club, which is still just a pretty awe-inspiring place to be. It seems that people outside of Washington are a little bit more impressed by it than people in Washington, but it's still a pretty cool place to have an event. So I was enjoying that. But I'm very happy to be back here and doing this recording with you guys.
We're very happy to have you, my friend. And a new face on the team, Maya Samuel, who's just joined us as Executive Director of our Custom Content Lab. How are you, Maya?
I'm great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, great to have you on board. And we'll find out a little bit about you and your background and what you're going to be doing at PR Week and MMM, our sister title. I always struggle with that word. And so we'll talk about that. We're going to do a review of the year and find out people's predictions for next year. We're going to talk about the big stories of the week, and we've got an interview with John Saunders, very interesting piece that. PRSA in New York has put out a call for diversity openness from agencies. We'll chat about that. There was an election this week. Roy Moore has yet to concede, I believe. Frank, is that right? Yeah.
That's correct.
He's leaving it in the hands of God. And we'll talk about student counsellors. We did a nice piece about student agencies, and it got a lot of traffic. Very interesting piece. And Ginger Hardage's new consultancy, and anything else that catches our attention over the next 25, 30 minutes. And before we start, it's the last one of the year, so I want to call out two of our most dedicated listeners who've been with us all year. Brian Kilgore from Canada, regular correspondent, loves the quality of our audio and the quality of our Facebook Live broadcast. Brian, happy holidays, thanks for listening in, hope you can hear this, and yes, hope you have a great break, and thanks for being a listener. And Betsy Bohannon from Richmond, Kentucky, one of our most regular listeners. Happy holidays, Betsy. Yes, have a good break, and we're looking forward to rejoining you in 2018. Okay, Maya, let's start with you. So you came over from NBC, didn't you? I dropped my very significant post-it notes. So I do a lot of preparation for these shows, as you can probably tell. A bit lost on the podcast crowd, as is my jumper, actually, my sweater, which I hope you're all enjoying on Facebook. It's the holiday sweater, time of year, gets its annual outing. But Maya,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about what you were doing at NBC and some of the things you've done in your career, and then we can talk about what you're going to be doing at PR Week.
Great.
And MM&M.
Yep. So NBC, I headed the custom content studio, the brand studio for NBC, CNBC, MSNBC, and Today Show, for varied clients, some financial, techs, all kinds of sectors. And some of our clients were, well, particularly for the Today Show, Johnson & Johnson, Universal, and Unilever.
What sort of things, what was the sort of project that you got most out of, what you thought was the best thing you did while you were there, or your teams did while you were there?
Porridge.
Porridge?
Porridge.
Tell us about porridge.
Yes, I loved a project we did about porridge, which you call oatmeal. And the client was Quaker. We did a series of articles, and we invented recipes, and I asked 6 chefs to come up with their own recipes for using oatmeal as a base, and then I got to try them all in my own kitchen.
Right.
With a food designer and photographers and the whole bit, and it was really fun. Then I got to eat it for weeks.
Excellent.
Afterwards.
And as a custom content piece, how did you measure the success of that for Quaker?
Well, engagement, obviously, responses, people adding their own takes on the recipes.
On social media,
commenting, people feeding it to their children, sending in photographs. I mean, we had enormous
Excellent.
response.
Excellent,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's great.
Great, well, we're looking forward to you adding some of those special recipes. See what I did there? To the PR Week and MM&M custom content offer. It's a big growing part of our business, and we'll really do some great work there, courtesy of Gideon and the rest of the team. So we're really pleased to have you on board, and looking
Great
forward to
to be
working
here.
with you and seeing what you do over the next 18 months. No pressure.
Fantastic.
But you also have, in your journalistic career,
Yes.
some great stories,
Yes.
one of which was smuggling a story out of Burma,
That's
now
right.
Myanmar. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so I did, at that point, Aung San Suu Kyi, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, had been under house arrest for at least 10 years, and it was essentially impossible to get an interview with her, especially a video interview. So I sent people into the country to physically contact her people. There was no other means of communication. And I and the correspondent Hoda Kotb went in as tourists. We bought a lot of tchotchkes to throw the authorities off the scent. And then we met in a safe house, interviewed her, and I had set up 5 identical cars to leave the scene so that we wouldn't be followed.
Wow.
We were in one car, she was in another, and then there were various others. And then we had to get the material out of the country, so I had my shoes, which were Nikes, I think, the bubble taken out of the heel so that there was enough room to slip a micro cassette in.
Right.
And went through went through, security in that way with those tapes and was not caught. And I was a bit irritated that wasn't caught because I wanted to be able to have that dinner party story.
Yeah, well, it's
Happen.
still a pretty good story. That's a very James Bond style journalism. Fantastic stuff.
I think when they take Robert Mueller off the case with Trump, I think you're the one who should take over it.
And Hoda Kotb, we had Hoda as a speaker at our conference
a couple of years
last
ago.
year,
Yeah,
was it last year or 2 years?
It was 2 or 3 years ago. I'm sorry, and I remember having the glasses of wine on the stage ready for her. But apparently, her and Kathy Lee had imbibed enough by that time, so she didn't drink it. I think I gave it to Steve.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
She was great.
really
She was
a lot of
great.
fun.
She
So,
was a
yeah.
lot of fun.
All right, so fantastic career and in journalism and then in branded content, and we're fantastic to have you on board. So looking forward to working with you. Okay, so what's next? Year in review. Okay, let's talk about this year because I can't remember many other years like this in terms of just personally. I mean, I remember interviewing Sean Spicer the night before Melissa McCarthy did her first skit on Saturday Night Live of him, and writing that up on the Sunday. I was just going to do it on Monday and just get it done. I thought, and then that happened. I was, wow, okay, so this is great. One of the few interviews that he did, he'd spoken to the Times, so that was a highlight of the year, and clearly that story played out. And then we had our little fun and games with United Airlines. Remember that? Making Oscar Munoz the Communicator of the Year in our awards, and then 1 month later there was the fiasco with them pile driving that guy into the seating
And that
on
was
the
after
plane.
Leggingsgate.
Who could forget Leggingsgate, Frank? Because you went on to ABC, was it?
No, it was CBS this morning.
CBS this morning.
Yes, which was also in the news for its own reasons later this year. But
Absolutely.
we won't get into that yet.
Well, we will do, but not yet.
But that was the whole fiasco sandwiched in between.
Yeah, and Frank was on, and then I was on Fox News and CNN and loads of other international media outlets, and we got a taste of the sort of haters as they on social media, and incredible stuff happening. Someone tried to hack into one of the reporters' Twitter feeds, but we actually were able to turn the conversation into a discussion about how important comms is to the corporation and to brands, and how, frankly, they did botch the communications response. And Jim Olsen, the head of comms there, has actually now recently left, hasn't he? So interesting stuff. And then I don't know what was going on this year, but then I got to interview Harvey Weinstein at Advertising Week on stage at Times Square, and then 1 week later he was monstered in that New York Times story, and his career was in ruins. And I guess it's been an interesting year on that front.
Is this becoming like the Sports Illustrated jinx?
Well, someone did say that to me, and they were sort of worried about being interviewed by me. I just did a fantastic. One of my highlights this year was interviewing Howard Rubinstein, who's well known to you, Gideon, and just a fantastic old guy, one of the legends. We just inducted him into the PR Week Hall of Fame. Some fantastic stories, and that was a lot of fun. So,
can you interview Donald Trump, please?
We've tried, and we tried to get Howard to talk about Donald Trump, and that was one thing he wouldn't say too much on, because he used to work for Donald and his father, Fred. So lots of highlights and lowlights this year. Frank, what were your couple of highlights this year, and then what have you got a prediction for next year?
Well, I'm happy just to be here.
Are you?
Yeah,
Why?
that's my highlight from 2017, because it's been touch and go for a while.
Has it? Well, is there anything you want to tell us?
Some some high stakes gamesmanship in North Korea and things like that.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just happy we're all here in one piece.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So let's celebrate that. And anything else?
No, I'm just thankful to still be in one piece.
That's it. That's
that's my
what you got.
2017 highlight. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And what about looking forward to 2018?
Oh, I think it's going to be even wilder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a wild news cycle of a year. I think it's going to be very fast-paced and fast-moving, and I think there are lots of unknowns that are going to gray swans, or are those the black swans?
The black swans.
Black swans that are going to be flying our way.
Okay, so you agreed with my blog from the other week.
Yes, I did. Yes.
I bet he didn't even read it, listeners. Anyway, right, well, thanks.
I did read it.
Thanks, Frank. Gideon, highlights of the year, and I look forward to next year.
Wow, well, I know I tend to get pretty verbose with these things, so why change now?
Never.
No,
Never.
anyway.
You
Well,
could never be accused of writing long emails or being verbose.
Stopwatch.
a few notable things from this year for me. Some highlights, some lowlights. First of all, I genuinely mean this. I've gotten to know Maya a little bit for the 3 or 4 weeks that you've been here. I am so looking forward to working with you.
Oh,
Tremendous
me too.
respect for you. And I can't wait to learn how to make oatmeal because I can't stand what I'm eating now, so that'd be kind of fun.
Well, can I just say, sorry to interrupt, but I'm getting a bit tired of people asking me for your autograph. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Don't lose your stride.
I don't even know what I said.
Come on.
Okay, honestly, I'll tell you what. One highlight for the year for me, and I'm going to stick to something in the PR industry, it was Barry Rafferty being named CEO of Ketchum.
Yeah, first woman to lead a top 5 PR agency.
Exactly, and for the longest time, everyone's been talking about when is that going to happen. Well, thanks to the folks at Ketchum, it is now happening. I think that's a really, really wonderful thing. I believe she takes over on January 1st or 2nd or whatever the first year. So that's going to be really, really exciting, and that's a really great highlight.
Working with Karen Van Bergen, who's head of Omnicom PR Group. So
Exactly.
2 senior women at the very top of the PR profession.
Exactly. A low light for me, and obviously you'd probably expect that I'd stick with something with sports, but I actually think this is something all of us could probably somewhat relate with, is the U.S. men's soccer team not making the World Cup.
Wow.
I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm a huge sports fan. I'm not going to say that soccer is my favorite sport, but I will tell you, when I look back at the year, I don't think there's a bigger sports story in this country, because that it was a foregone conclusion that the U.S. would make the World Cup, probably just as much as it's a foregone conclusion for England to make the World Cup or Italy to make the World Cup. Oh yeah, Italy didn't make it either. There you go. But the U.S. not making the World Cup is really, really quite a story, especially the folks at Fox who spend, $200 million to broadcast it next year. They're not happy. I suspect the folks even in Russia are probably not happy about it, because if I'm not mistaken, the U.S. probably brought more fans with them in Brazil.
So Brazil,
2014.
there were more
Yeah.
US fans than any other country.
But
Yeah.
you bring up a good point. It's going to be really interesting to see how Fox packages this.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of speculation about it to this point that, would they try to sort of play Mexico as the other, home team, so to speak,
Right.
or it's going to be interesting to watch.
And
Why
it's all,
not England, Frank?
Well, there's a bit of distance there, an ocean.
Yeah, but we have a special relationship.
it's
Well,
also
it's not so
Apparently.
special anymore, is it?
No.
It's been a bit stretched.
I noticed that when I tried to get into Canada and I needed a special visa.
Oh,
Whereas, yeah.
Well,
And they're a member of our Commonwealth. So,
That's just the Canadians.
yeah, I suppose so.
I'm actually going to throw one more somewhat obscure highlight, but I welcome everyone out there to sort of check the video of what I'm about to talk about. I don't know why this sticks in my mind, but obviously you have a lot of athletes out there, Colin Kaepernicks of the world, or I'm just using him as an example, who probably don't represent themselves, their sports, perhaps as well as we'd like them to.
That's a slightly controversial statement. We could unpack that one for an hour on its own.
Well, then this one should be less controversial. When Sloane Stephens won the U.S. Open this year, her reaction to it was priceless. How
What sport is this?
tennis. Sorry, there you go. Sloane Stephens won the U.S. Open.
Sorry, I'm in the wrong
that's fine.
tax bracket.
I know, Steve. Steve, you like tennis, so you might remember
That's
this.
quite funny.
Her reaction
Right.
to it was just so priceless. She was so humble. It was just really. All of you guys can just go on YouTube and watch her reaction when she won the tournament. For some reason, that really, really sticks to me. I mean, it was just the humility that she showed. I keep using that word, was great. But anyway, looking forward to next year. I mean, I'm just going to make a prediction, which I don't think is going to be that bold, but and it is hopeful on my part. I do think the Democrats will probably take back the House and hopefully the Senate next year. Maybe what happened in Alabama, once Moore finally realizes that he didn't actually win, hopefully is a harbinger of things to come for the Democrats. So not a bold prediction, but I think the Democrats will have a good 2018 midterm election. At least I don't know if I'm being predictive or
Right,
hopeful.
can I just at this point say that we're non-partisan at PR Week, and all our coverage is straight down the middle. But anyway, that's you, Gideon.
I'm allowed to have a personal opinion. I mean, plenty of Republicans out there I like too, but I do think the Democrats will take back the House and Senate next year. That's my
Okay,
prediction.
thank you, Maya. Is there anything you wanted to flag up, or you're looking forward to in 2018? What do you think of since we're talking about the topic of media and meltdowns, and two things actually I wanted to ask you. The fake news agenda has been one of the biggest talking points this year, and Donald Trump has pushed away at that meme, and the media's not doing itself any favours, is it? They've got misreporting. There was the misreporting around the Mueller investigation, which led to the suspension of an ABC journalist. We had CNN making an error and having to apologise, and we've had sexual discrimination complaints leading to the appearance of Charlie Rose, Matt Lauer, lots of other, Glenn Thrush, all these senior journalists. What do you think of that dynamic? As someone who worked in that environment for 20, 30 years, what's your take on it?
Well, first of all, Me Too, I think in terms of communications, that obviously is one of the biggest stories of the year. Organic story, organic reach. Well, I mean, I really can't address this without being controversial. For any woman in the media, we've faced it, we've been through it, we've known it. I always read the comments on the Daily Mail for any article about...
Why do you do that?
Because it's fascinating.
Okay.
Absolutely
It's slightly
fascinating.
depressing, though, in the way that social media is as well.
It is, but... and the comments tend to be, why are you saying this now when you've benefited from your relationship with these men? Over and over again. I think that shows a clear lack of understanding about how women had to operate in those businesses. I think all of us who've been through this and knew some of those stories, it's been sort of alarming and fascinating and interesting and a relief to see them coming out. Of course there's going to be backlash, of course there's going to be a reset, but I think...
Do you think this will lead to a fundamental change in workplace practices and the way people behave in business generally across the board?
I think it has come from a fundamental change. I think the fundamental change is more women in those roles, and I'm sure that's true in PR as well. More women in roles, in leadership roles, younger women who are less willing to accept the status quo. Will it change? I had a very interesting conversation with one of the PR Week Hall of Famers, who said that there was a concern that fewer women would be put into positions of authority because the men hiring them would be nervous about...
Really?
Yeah, about putting women around them. I don't think that's true. I
certainly hope not.
Yeah. I do think there will be a change, and I don't think it's such a terrible thing to have a more formal etiquette in the office.
Yeah, sure, I agree. I think it's been talked about for years and nothing's happened, and this finally something is happening, and a lot of careers are being dashed because of it. But that's kind of
exactly.
Nothing has come to people who don't deserve it, So some of the stories are just incredible, aren't they? When you actually read the detail of some of these stories with Matt Lauer, with Harvey Weinstein.
Well, they're not incredible to me,
right?
And to my former colleagues. And so please stop asking me to admire your Christmas sweater.
It's my one day of the year when I get to wear my holiday sweater. Perry behind the dials, the man who keeps the wheels moving, the technical genius. Have you got a highlight of the year or something that stood out for you, and anything you're particularly looking forward to in 2018?
Let me see here. Highlights, I would say joining PR Week.
There you go. Correct answer.
Next year, we got Avengers 4. You guys understand how big of a deal that is?
Don't you have something coming up tonight?
I do. I have Star Wars coming up tonight.
Yeah, Perry, we're heading to our holiday party tonight, but Perry is going to head off early to watch Star Wars. Apparently that's a big deal.
Trying to avoid the drunken bathroom. Yeah.
Yes, last year didn't end so well, did it, for you at the...
Perry, are you going to dress up as like a stormtrooper or anything?
Yeah, I got all black on.
Okay.
Can I just say, and I'm saying this only as a completely objectively, that Perry has the most fantastic outfits in the office.
He does.
Most fantastic style.
He does.
Yeah.
Just, we can't really talk about this year without talking about the president's first year in office and the press office. We mentioned Sean Spicer earlier. Then we had that brief dalliance with the Mooch, one of Frank's favourite...
what a 10 days.
It's incredible, wasn't it? And then now we've got the Sarah Sanders period, which is in many ways is just as remarkable. Frank, what's your take on...
I think there's a little bit of all of us who misses the Mooch.
Yeah.
No.
No. Well, I would just say I don't think I ever expected to see somebody blowing kisses from the White House podium like that. So new experience for everybody, I think.
Yeah, the whole sort of concept of the PR person not being the story didn't seem to be one to which the Mooch subscribed, or indeed Sean Spicer.
No.
Sean Spicer less for his
No,
own.
and look, I when you talk about Spicer, I don't think you can get around the fact that a press secretary has never imploded on his first day on the job before like that.
Yeah.
So, when you say where to start, you have to start right there.
Yeah, he kind of went into work that Saturday just expecting to set his office up and just have a chill day in the office, and then he was at 5 o'clock in front of the world's press and straight into it. So
and
it
what was
extraordinary.
worse, his boss couldn't get over how bad his suit was, and then that was a whole news cycle in itself.
I think what's going to be also particularly of note with this administration are the number of books that come out of the people who've been.
Yeah, he's just announced his book this week, isn't he? It's coming out. Are you looking forward to reading that one,
Well,
Fred?
it doesn't sound like it's going to be too juicy, though, does it? It sounds like it's going to be a lot of media commentary and things like that, and less of a tell-all in the traditional.
Yeah, it's a bit early for a tell-all, I guess.
I think it has a sort of sartorial guide in the back as well.
Is the Mooch going to do a book? That's the question.
Well, he was trying to sell one.
He has done a book.
Yeah.
He did a self-funded
Picture book.
autobiography.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Before this or
I
after?
went to the launch party.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Was this after his 10
No,
days?
this is a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
about 5-10 years.
And what do we think of Sarah Sanders as a press secretary? There was a lot of debate about Spicer and being a poor role model for PR pros. What do we think of Sanders and the way she's doing the job, Maya? Not a lot, but
I don't understand the value of berating.
reporters.
I don't understand it. My previous job at NBC, every year for every administration, NBC does 24 hours in the White House. I've been a part of that, shooting under the George W. Bush administration. We're there to do a job, they're there to do a job, we understand the relationship, it's not necessarily a cosy one, but I think the tone is very surprising.
Do you think that any press secretary who works for this president is going to have to adopt that tone by definition, or is it a conscious strategy from the president and that's what he wants his press secretary to do?
I think that's what he wants his press secretary to do because I think it entertains the base.
Yeah.
And obviously devalues the work of the
which is
press,
a key strategy of his, interesting stuff.
I mean, one of the shames is, and I mean, you, Frank and Steve probably know this better than I do. I mean, you guys knew Sean Spicer before this role, obviously, and I don't think what it devolved into really represents what kind of communicator he really is. I just think it's an impossible role because I don't think Donald Trump has any respect for it.
And he had the misfortune of being the first one too, which I think
True.
played into it as well.
There was a headline actually, "The Impossible Job."
Look at. I mean, obviously, there's never been a president obviously there's never been a president remotely like Trump, but there's never been a president who, on a daily basis, close advisors become unclose advisors and then they leave. It's just, I gotta be honest with you, maybe Trump deserves a little credit for actually still being in the job. Because I think there's a lot of people you could have gotten pretty good odds that he wouldn't have been there after a year.
Well, let's get back to the first thing you said and then get into that. But if you talk about Spicer, he's not an idiot. He's been portrayed as in various ways. He's not a dumb guy. He's a very smart strategist. He was a very good behind the scenes guy for the RNC. He helped them update their data and digital and social operations very well. They did a lot of catching up under him to the Democrats. He had a good sense of strategy and what he wanted to do with that group. I think a lot changed when he became like the very upfront spokesperson for the administration. But when he was with the RNC, I think a lot of people would argue he did a very good job for them.
Yeah.
And he had very good relationships with the media, didn't he? So they did all change. So I don't think any of those individuals have really made a great case for the role of the PR person and the qualities that you need as a good PR person. So just purely from a looking at it from that point of view, I don't think it's been a great year for communicators generally, because they've really reinforced negative stereotypes about PR people that aren't true. We know that from all our readers.
And also a fundamental lack of charm.
Yeah.
The ability to charm the people you're communicating to, who in that immediate space are members of the
Do you
media.
think Mooch had a certain
suppose
charm about it? Queen's charm?
He's a kind of Paco Rabanne charm.
Yeah, Sanders has not got a great deal of charm.
She is
Spicer had more
in
than he
some
let.
different ways. She's. I would argue she's more effective than Spicer was.
Yeah.
But she, at the end of the day, I mean, she still gets caught with her pants on fire quite a bit.
She's that's a reference to lying, I believe.
Yes, that is. Yeah.
No, she certainly reduced the noise around
Right.
the role, which had to happen. It was just ridiculous. It was becoming a soap opera. It wasn't every day people were tuning in to watch the White House press conference, which I don't recall ever happening, really, apart from on big occasions like a war or an election. So, yeah, she certainly dampened that down. But, yeah, you're right on that other thing.
I'm also quite fascinated by the makeover, which I know she is alleged is sexist, but that the attention paid to that is sexist. But I do think it's quite fascinating how her makeup, clothing, hair, everything has evolved.
Yeah.
Just over a few months.
And that probably happens with men as well, doesn't it? But I certainly remember with Margaret Thatcher, when she came into power in the UK, she had a complete makeover, didn't she? From her voice to her style, to soften her image. And that was a big part of her success, I guess, in the end, although she had a rocky the first few years. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. We can do that in another show, can't we? All right, so yeah, it's been an interesting year, and it's flown by. I can't believe it's already December, actually. That's one thing we can all agree on, I think, and certainly lots to look forward to next year. I think from the PR agency's point of view, I think it's been a tough year. And, you only have to look at the financials. I don't think anyone's really massively up in the big agency sector, and I think they're going to have another tough year next year. So that is something we'll be continuing to cover. And clients are reining in their budgets and being very careful on their spending. Concurrently and slightly oddly, the economy in some ways is booming, isn't it? With the stock market's as high as it's ever been. The financial sector is loving the lack of less regulation and prospect of tax cuts. So, anyone got a view on how those things can happen? Concurrently, why aren't clients spending more on communications if the economy is doing so well?
I would just caution, first of all, on tax cuts, it's not a done deal yet. Rubio has just said he's not going to vote for it, which is kind of a surprise no vote. So I think we have to let this play out for another week or however long it takes. But we're not seeing that real translation from booming stock market to communication spend, are we? I mean, we're not hearing about that from a lot of people.
Definitely not, no. Yeah. Or even maybe to consumer spending.
Right.
A lot of the CPG companies, for example, the food companies, are really struggling. I think they're kind of behind. They're a little old-fashioned, aren't they? You're talking about the oatmeal companies, those core food companies. There is a school of thought that they haven't really moved on, and they haven't changed with customer tastes, and you see brands starting up and becoming popular by demand, like LaCroix, the fizzy flavoured water on the West Coast, which is everywhere. That's been a consumer-driven thing, and you can see lots of other trends like that in terms of organic food or healthier foods, etc. So I think that might be, given how much marketing and communications budgets are linked to those brands, maybe that's a factor as well. So let's get into the stories of the week, shall we? We heard about Perry being the best dressed man in PR Week, possibly at Haymarket overall. John Saunders of Fleischmann Hillard, I guess, would definitely be a contender as best dressed man in PR, and a very charming man he is too. But we had the pleasure of an interview with him, didn't we, Frank? Diana Bradley did a great job. Tell us a few highlights from the interview.
Diana sat down with John yesterday, who, of course, is a native of Dublin, Ireland, and CEO of the world's third largest agency. But he would argue that Fleischmann is one of the top two agencies.
That was very interesting, wasn't it?
Bit of a provocative...
he didn't say who was number one, though, did he?
Didn't say who was number two either, or who he's trying to elbow out. So, look, a lot of interesting thoughts from him about the performance of Omnicom's PR firms in general, how Fleischmann has performed compared with them, why they perform better in election years, and how he works with the other Omnicom PR CEOs. So it's on our website now. You should give it a look if you have a few minutes.
I see our studio is living up to its reputation as the noisiest room in the building, isn't it? So that's good to know. Sorry about the background noise.
I'd actually like to throw something in about John Saunders. I obviously didn't interview him yesterday, but Fleischman Hillard was also one of the agencies we honor as our best places to work.
See, that's right,
And-
which is always a good indicator, isn't it?
Yeah, and I will tell you, having worked on that program so closely, it was pretty amazing how many staffers who took the survey specifically mentioned how much they appreciated working for John Saunders. And while there are other agency CEOs who definitely have good reputations in that way, I never remember seeing so many responses coming from one agency where they cited the CEO as being really appreciated in that manner, especially considering where Fleischman Hillard came from a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a pretty amazing turnaround story in a lot of
Yeah,
ways,
you
too.
definitely hear that when you go around the world, that people enjoy the culture and they
Yeah.
enjoy the changes that have come in the new structure. Okay, so yeah, check that interview out, prweek.com, all the best stories and content in relation to PR. The PRSA in New York has a new incoming president, is it?
That's right. Sharon Fenster is the president-elect.
President-elect, and she's made a call for more diversity amongst agencies.
Well, what she's calling for specifically is for PR agencies and organizations like the PR Council and other industry groups to disclose their diversity data in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity, and just kind of out with it. You know, what does your workforce look like? And give us numbers.
I don't quite understand what she means when she's asking for industry groups to disclose their data. Do you mean for their organisations themselves?
Well, I
or?
believe she means for their membership.
Yeah, it can't be the organization
Yeah.
themselves. There's not that many.
But would they even have that data?
Well, you would think they could get it, or
I mean,
they could get a rough
Has the PRSA
markup of it.
Has the PRSA got that data, for example, in New York? The
We'll ask
organisation.
them.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a subject we seem to have been talking about for forever, doesn't it?
We do, and my question about this is why not? You know, I think that I would have to imagine that most firms have some sort of rough idea of what their workforce looks like in terms of numbers. I think that we know that there is not a lot of diversity in the industry. I think that actually putting some numbers out there about how good or bad it is might actually help to fix the problem.
Certainly in the UK last year, the IPA, the Institute for Practitioners in Advertising, teamed up with Campaign, actually, our sister title, to put some targets in place, some actual hard targets to be reached by 2020. And all the holding companies signed up to this diversity target, and they are, committed to achieving those and to revealing their numbers. So,
and might I add, this might actually be very good for PR firms, in that if you look at HP, for instance, there are a lot of clients out there demanding that agencies bring forward teams that look like their customer base.
yeah, HP, Verizon.
So this might actually help to get them to a place they need to be at.
I guess the legal situation is different over here than it is in the UK, for example. So I think some agencies might, or some employers generally, might be nervous about releasing figures like that because they might fear they're opening themselves up to lawsuits.
But the tech companies have done it. Like the Facebooks and even the Ubers of the world have released data like this.
Yeah, so is there really any reason why companies can't do it, is the question.
I guess we're going to see it in the next couple
Yeah,
of years.
well, we will, and we'll stay on that story. So, a definite topic to be followed very closely in 2018. Let's talk about the high-profile election this week, the Roy Moore election. He still hasn't conceded, but seems he's lost. What do you think of that, Frank, and what do you think from a communications point of view?
Well,
the way
interesting.
that fight played out.
Yeah, interesting. Last night, Moore got off his horse and actually sat down and did a campaign-style video that they posted in which he did not concede, even about a full day after the race was called. So, it's been, like I said, it's been a weird year, filled with a lot of weird stories.
Weird images.
This has been a really...
Was he wearing his cowboy hat?
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
And I think we would all be lying if we were not going to acknowledge that we're going to miss his cowboy kids costume get-up.
I'm going to miss his horse's Twitter feed.
Oh, there were a few of them that popped up the other night. But anyway, Sassy the horse we're talking about.
Sassy.
Of course. And I really enjoyed people taking apart how he actually isn't a very good horse rider.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were
That's-
really
that's
getting at his form.
This is what it's devolved to, huh?
Yeah, well, you got to have some fun.
I guess
Well,
so.
and these things all play into who people vote for, don't
Yeah.
they? So
But
the
let's,
image
okay,
of-
so let's be serious.
This is a
for
serious
second.
topic.
This is
Yes.
because a lot of the allegations against Moore were extremely serious. That he was chasing and pursuing and acting improperly with underage women. Incidents going back decades.
banned from certain
Underage
malls.
girls, I think.
Yes, girls. Excuse me. Yes, and Doug Jones, who was a large underdog in the race, was able to move past him in the final weeks of the election. Really fascinating to watch on election night. You know, a lot of the exit poll data was looking very good for Moore, in that especially a lot of the late breakers, as they're called, went for Moore in the days right before the election. But it didn't help him in the end.
So that's another kick in the teeth for the polling
Yep,
industry, which
exactly.
just seems to be... you
Well,
can't-
I think everybody takes exit polls with a grain of salt. I think, you know, especially after what happened last November, but going back to 2004 when a lot of the exit polling was so wrong, that I think people take them with a grain of salt.
One of the more extraordinary things from a communications point of view was the interview with Moore's head of communications when he
Yes.
was pulled up on his views on Muslims shouldn't take office because they couldn't swear on the Bible.
Yeah.
What did you make of that?
Look, there's a lot to unpack here. There's the spokesman interview on CNN in which he just went to blank silence for 15 seconds after he was corrected on that. There was yes, his wife in the nights before the election with her comments about one of their lawyers. We'll leave it at that for now.
Oh, yeah.
And there's just this was a really crazy race.
Yeah, and I think you can't underestimate how a Democrat winning in that state, what that means, because it's
Yeah.
unheard of, isn't
Yeah.
it? And so really kind of in some ways restores your faith in the electorate to a certain extent, although there were still a lot of people who voted for the judge.
I'm just fascinated by what conversations in terms of communications must have been happening behind the scenes at that campaign for his wife to come up and say what she said. And I mean, that must have been discussed and planned.
It was definitely not. I think if you look at the way that she said it, I would be shocked if she made it up on the spot, because
Yeah.
she seemed to say it and then pause dramatically and then kind of look at the press area directly, and it was clear.
So someone thought that was a good idea.
Yeah,
Someone thought that was a good idea, which means they were in such a bubble
Yeah.
right.
that
Or they don't care, which is also
Well,
entirely
and
possible.
let me just say though, I don't know that this election, in and of itself, necessarily says that the Democrats are going to have a huge tidal wave next year. There are so many outliers, so many anomalies in this race, so many just strange, bizarre things that I don't know that you're going to see this on a district by district level. But we will see.
Yeah, we will indeed. Let's move on. Student councillors. A lot of
Yes.
student faculties have agencies run by the students, and they do real work for real
They do
clients,
real
and some
work.
of the work's really good.
And as you know, this is a subject that is close to my heart. And we're
Yeah,
talking-
you're an educator in your own right, aren't you, Frank?
Well, sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I'm shocked.
Educating the youth of tomorrow,
Shocked they even let me in the
the
classroom.
Gen Z or millennials that you're teaching?
Well, it's a mix.
Yeah.
It's a mix, and some folks that are older.
It's great to have you shaping the next generation,
It's a
to
horrifying
make them into the
thought,
great
so
generation,
yeah.
the next greatest generation, Frank.
Okay, so we last week, Chris Daniels, our intrepid freelancer, talked to a few of the student-run PR agencies that are out there, like Scarlet PR at Rutgers University, and the PR Lab up at Boston University, which was actually launched all the way back in 1978.
Yeah, I've
claims
been up there
be
to see them. It's great.
Claims to be the oldest student-run agency
There you
in the
go.
country.
The alumnus of Brittany Kiefer, formerly
Alma
of this
mater.
alma mater,
Alma mater,
of Brittany
Brittany Kiefer,
Kiefer, formerly of this parish, now in the UK, working for our sister title
also-
campaign.
it's also-
Hello, Brittany, if you're listening, if you still
also-
listen to PR Week.
It's also the oldest communication school in the country.
Is it?
Well, we just did this program with them to celebrate their 70 years,
A
so.
partner content program. I should
Exactly,
say.
which is probably why he's getting mentioning that. Well, there you go. But all the content, all the
Good one
content.
to get in there. Well done.
Absolutely.
Well done. Key messages. You're going to mention Cision next. More partner content.
I actually was, but I'll let Frank finish his thoughts there.
I
Got your
appreciate that.
Cision T-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
So if you were to look at the Capstone Agency, which is the student-run agency at the University of Alabama, they work with clients like Alabama Power and the American Cancer Society on its Real Men Wear Pink campaign. So they're out there doing real work. They're getting real...
To get real billings.
Real billings.
Yeah.
They have to manage each other, and they kind of get a taste
What was
of
the
real world.
Xeno campaign that we wrote about a couple of months ago? That was involved a student agency as well. You're looking at me blankly, Frank. I don't like it when you do that.
Apologies.
He produces so many great stories.
I know he
Can't
does.
remember them all.
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. All right, let's finish with a good friend of yours, Gideon. You could talk a little bit about this one, maybe. Ginger Hardage. She's started up a new consultancy. So, do you know anything about that? Can you speak to that?
I actually do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean the word culture is the word culture is in the name of her new company. And I'm sorry, Ginger, I forgot the full name of it.
Well,
but
it's called, I have it written down, and it's called Unstoppable Culture.
that's it, Unstoppable Culture,
It's
and yeah.
based in Dallas, and she's working with organizations and companies and speaking at events and conferences about building cultures that help companies retain talent.
Now I will tell
Another
you
member of our Hall of Fame.
absolutely. The one thing about Ginger, which I think is great, is she is in such demand to speak about this topic that actually CAA books all of her speaking engagements.
Really?
That's how big she is. Even though she did tell me that she likes PR Week so much that we can just go directly to her if we ever need her for
There
anything.
you go.
But no, the truth of the matter is that what Ginger Hardage did is she was one of the few people when she was at Southwest where her title was SVP of Culture and Communications.
Yes, that's right.
Building a culture is something that has been so important to her. She really is a pioneer in this front, and I do think that Southwest, even its stock symbol, LOVE, L-U-V, which I know some people might snicker at, but it kind of captures the culture of that entire organization. And now, obviously, she's been replaced by Linda Rutherford at Southwest. Linda's also just a terrific communicator, but Ginger understands that. It all starts, whether it's communications or whatever part of your business, it all starts with your culture. And Ginger has always gotten that. And it's empowering all of your employees. It's listening to them. It's making sure that all decisions that you make have them in mind.
Very
And
much like what goes on at PR Week, Gideon.
under your leadership, absolutely.
Thank you, mate.
Absolutely.
That raises in the.
But you know what though? I actually think it's really, really smart of Ginger to start this endeavor because there's no one else really focused on it. On a broader level.
It sounds interesting.
It should be very interesting. I look forward to seeing what her exploits.
Yes,
are going to be.
absolutely. So listen, we're coming to the end of the show, I'm afraid. So just a couple of customer service announcements. Don't forget that our global awards are open for entries. I think it's till January the 18th, something like that. And there's a late entry period as well. So do get your best work in, cross-border work, and best work in LATAM or Middle East and Africa or Asia. We're also, submissions are open for the Brand Film Festival. Very excited about that. One of our most popular things that we've launched over the past 2 years, going from strength to strength. That, I think, is until something like January the 21st. But check it out. prweekglobalawards.com and brandfilmfestival.com. Brilliant initiatives, so do check those out. I want to say happy holidays to everybody in this room. Thank you for all your hard work. Maya, great to have you on board. Frank, thanks for all your amazing work this year. Gideon, thank you.
Thank you.
Perry, thank you. And to the rest of the team who aren't here, thank you to all our listeners who tune into this podcast. Thank you to all our readers, everybody who's consuming our content. We realise we wouldn't be here without you, so we wish you great fortune in 2018. Have a great break and a happy holiday, and we'll see you on the PR Week in the first week in January. So we'll see you then.